Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Metal Nation Radio, and tonight joining us our brother, Mr. Urban Breed of Serious Black. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am doing good. How is everything in your world?
Right now, it's pretty good. Yeah. I'm, working on new music, and it's looking up. It's looking good. You might think this is stupid because, we just released an album, but, we can't necessarily always pick and choose when we write the new stuff. So it might very well happen right after the release of the album. And so right now, this is when we have the time to write. So hard at work writing. I'll be back on the road soon enough. So got to do it now.
Before we dig into the new Serious Black record, let me applaud you on your duet work with Mind Maze last year. Dreamwalker with Breed and Teats is phenomenal, so thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you so much. Well, quite frankly, I told them that there was no need. We couldn't improve on the song because, quite frankly, I love her performance on that. So I told her that there's no real need to do it, but we did it for fun, and it was fun. I did enjoy it.
I think it turned out great, so we have two fantastic versions of it. But let's get to what we're here to talk about. Tell us about Mirrorworld, because while As Daylight Breaks was a great album, this one elevates the band even farther, at least to my ears.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you think so. Not everybody thinks so, which, of course, I actually think is a good thing. Normally, you see, you get good reviews everywhere, and I did so enjoy reading the reviews for this album where some people are going like, this is really, really bad, and the rest of the guys are going, we love it. This is exactly what I wanted. And I think it actually speaks to the fact that we have really good songs that are talking to our crowd, to our audience. And it just so happens that if you don't like it, it's simply not made for you, Well, yeah. And that's how I want it, because this means that this album will find its audience and it will love it. And that's what we want.
Well, no, it's funny that you mentioned that, because earlier today I was sort of going and reading the reviews from different people, and I was reading some of the positive ones and some of the negative ones. And like with the negative ones, what they were saying was that what they loved so much about the first album wasn't what they got on the second album, but what I loved so much on the second album were some of the things that I felt were maybe missing from the first album. So I think it's great that you have all those aspects and you continue to evolve, and the third album might be a combination of both those things. It might be a totally new element we haven't heard from Serious Black before.
Well, your guess, or what should I say, you might be right. We'll find out what the next one is. We're writing it as we speak. The title track is already written, and the pre-production of it is done, and it's absolutely fantastic. There will be some differences, absolutely, because there's no point in making the exact same album twice. We already did that, we made one album. Okay, let's write songs. And that's what we do. We write songs. If we like the songs, we're using them, and that's just it. There's no real strategy going, let's target this crowd of people. It's more the fact that we write songs, and we can probably guess as to what kind of audience will enjoy it, but it's not really for us to decide. We make the music as good as we can, and hopefully you love it. Step one is, if we love it, we put it out. If we don't put it out. So there you go.
And that's the reason to do it. So now, with an album like this, especially a title like Mirrorworld, and the cinematic scope of the record, you assume that it's a concept album. And I don't believe this is a concept record, but is there some sort of a theme, maybe a little bit, that's going on with this one?
Nah, you're correct. It's not a concept album. And if there is some sort of a theme, it's basically just that I wrote almost all of the lyrics. So there are two tracks that I didn't write the lyrics for, and those are Jan's tracks where he's singing too. So it's I didn't do anything to Dying Hearts or Goodbye My Angel, but the rest of it is written by me. So if there's a theme, it's because it's from my head, and I got my thoughts, my philosophies, and my principles, and my way of thinking. So that's the theme that's on there. But not, other than that, there's not really a theme. No.
Now, this is the first album with Bob Katsionis and Alex Holsworth on the record, two phenomenal musicians.
Oh, absolutely.
What did they bring to the table on Mirrorworld?
Well, Bob wrote a lot of writing to the table, and a whole lot of, good ideas. Good songwriting, good guitar playing, and a and a nice songwriting partner for me, and that was really good. Alex brought, reliability and his own style of drumming. That's really. I would point out that, like, take the title track for instance. I absolutely love his drumming on it. It just. I told him, man, that's fantastic. I said, and he said, "Oh, thank you so much." Because we keep forgetting to tell each other. We tell the people that are near to us that we work with. We keep forgetting to tell them that, man, you did great work here. We just go we take it for granted that they know that they're doing great work and that we are grateful. But no, I told him, thank you so much for putting so much effort into what you did here on the title track and on all this other stuff. And he was very happy to hear it, because you got to say it, otherwise people don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like you take it for granted. You hear a name like Alex Holsworth or a Bob Cassianos, you just assume these guys are so good at what they do, they just know it. But it's like, you want to hear those things. It's nice, especially from the people, that you play with, not to the fans you expect it from, but,
And it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're going to put in a good performance on an album, you have to take your time, sit with the material, spend that extra time. And that's effort, it's time and effort. And you should be, thanked for that as well, by everyone. It's a little bit like, you're a team, and you got to let the team know that you appreciate that you're there together.
So now, did you guys do anything different on Mirror World or approach it any differently?
Well, we had a little bit more time to prepare this album. Of course, like any other band, and any label will tell you that, you give the band a deadline and they can't they can't make it because we're musicians. But yeah, we did have a little bit more time, so that helped. And in some ways it didn't, because we had more time. So like true musicians, we went, yeah, gonna send him my ideas tomorrow, and then it's tomorrow, and go, you know what, I got more time than last time, I can make it still. So that's a musician for you. But yeah, we still had a bit more time to do this. And other than that, it's just, to me, the biggest difference was that I had Bob as a songwriting partner for a lot of it, and that helped a lot.
Now, did you personally record your vocals with the band, or did you do them separately at your own place, like here in the U.S., and just send them over? Or
I pretty much always record everything here in my studio. I feel better that way. I don't feel like I'm wasting anybody's time. I can experiment. I can do this. I can do that, and not have somebody standing there going, "Urban, that's good enough. Move on." I can just take the time, and I don't, have to worry about anything. It's also not like I'm standing in a studio where, money is rolling away. Granted, you could make the argument that I could use the studio for other things, but I don't. So there you go. So it doesn't really play into it. So that's what I did. But despite that, on this album, there are actually 2 tracks that have my vocals tracked in a different location. I'm still using my own gear, but it's done in the kitchen of Jan's studio in the Czech Republic. So not in the actual recording room or anything, but in the kitchen. So the verses for Caster Skies and the verses for The Unborn Never Die, they're from my original demo that I made while I was sitting in the kitchen there. Because Bob sent me Caster Skies, and when he sent me that, I was already working on The Unborn Never Die, and so he sent me his original demo for Caster Skies. And I said, this riff and this verse is fantastic, and he didn't really have a chorus for it, so I played it on keyboards and sang in the chorus, and I did the verses and everything and sent it over, and he said, okay, that's it, we got the song. And then I sent over my demo for The Unborn Never Die, and he said, yeah, can we play this in a different key? And I said, I'd rather not, because then I can't sing the little C part in the key that I wanted exactly, because that's important. So unfortunately for him, that meant that the guitars are very awkward to play because of the key involved. But other than that, those 2 tracks are the ones that have vocals recorded elsewhere. But other than that, no, the rest is recorded here.
You segued nicely into where I was going next. Obviously we don't have time to go through every track on the album, but there were 3 that immediately struck a chord with me that I wanted to ask about. Let's
Go ahead.
Let's start with the one that you just mentioned. You guys made a video for it, Caster Skies. I love it. There's so many elements to it. But you wrote the lyrics. What's going on there? Tell us. I mean, because the video gives us one thing, but...
Well, the video is actually, and this is interesting enough, that the director actually picked up on my lyrics. I did send him a small explanation too, but he didn't really need it. But it actually, the lyrics are it may not be obvious at first glance, but it's really, if we want to survive as the human race, that we're going to have to leave this planet at some point, because that's just the way it is. if nothing else, the sun will eat it up. So anyway, and the song takes the perspective from one of the obviously privileged people that get to leave the earth in the first wave, wondering what life is like for the people that he had to leave behind. Right. And because that's inevitably what's going to happen. You're going to have some people that are privileged enough to go, because not everybody will. And so that's the whole stance of the song, and that's where it takes off.
An interesting choice of the title there, Castor Skies. It just creates an image, you know? So.
Yeah, not everybody will know, of course, it's Castor and Pollux, the twins, you know?
Right.
And I didn't really care if, I don't really think that it's possible that there will be a planet around Castor or Pollux that would be sustainable for human life, but that was irrelevant. I picked any star, and there you go. That's actually the words I heard in my head when I wrote the chorus, so that's the reason why it ended up being that.
Well, it worked perfectly. And of course, I love a great driving rock song, and you guys, As Long As I'm Alive is the first thing that we got to hear from the album. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Oh, that's a song I actually wrote, I think back in 2003, 2004. I intended it to be on the follow-up to Modus Vivendi, which of course didn't happen. In fact, the guys didn't want it. And so I've had it in my back pocket since then, and just brought it up now, and we made it.
What were they thinking? That is a fantastic song.
It's the same thing. On the first album we had Trailer Murder, which I actually wrote and proposed to use with the Trailer Murder album. They also didn't want that. So, not every song will always resonate with everybody, and that's perfectly all right. So it wouldn't have mattered also with As Long As I'm Alive, because obviously I left Tad Morose, so so it wouldn't have ended up there anyway.
Well, you chose to name the album Mirrorworld, so let's talk about that song. There had to be a reason you chose that for the title. Give us a little backstory there.
Well, actually, I was saying that we shouldn't pick that as a title. It's my song. I wrote that also. I think not as a follow-up to Modus Vivendi, but I wrote it, I think, the year after I left Tad Morose, and I wanted to write a lot of different stuff, and I did. So I wrote that song, and I brought it up again, pretty much like with As Long As I'm Alive to the band, and we wanted to work on it. And Mario said, "Hey, that's a great title for the album." And I said, "No, I want a different title," because I had written another song that in the end it's on the album, but the title is changed, and I thought it would be a better title. As it turns out, Mario was right. so I'm very happy about that. But the song itself, it's really all about how all our lives we really just we live with a reflection of the world, because that's all we have. It's how once reality sort of seeps into our brain, it's already a reflection of it. So it's a mirror world, and that's really the perspective of the song. And it would be nice to break out from that and actually really connect, but we can't, not really. It's a little bit like, in real life, we cannot actually have anything actually touching, because if you could actually touch another human being, that would be like a great big nuclear collision and a problem. So there you go.
Deep thoughts from Urban Breed.
Yes.
Oh man. So I have to ask, this was sort of an interesting album, because when I got the deluxe version of it that's got 16 tracks on it. The actual Mirrorworld album has 9 tracks. The deluxe edition has an extra 7 songs. Why only 9 on the main album and so many bonus tracks?
I mentioned earlier that I did actually get sick during the recording. So that was a little bit of a delay that came on from my part, and it was enough that I couldn't quite make. I delivered 3 of the tracks one day too late to make it on the short one. It wouldn't have had all 3 on the album. It would have had 1 more perhaps, but we couldn't because of that, and I really couldn't have done it any other way. It was really serious. I sort of had to learn to sing again. So basically, because our vocal folds and the whole voice box actually changes, ligaments harden, other parts soften, and it goes on, and it's normally a slow process in everybody's life, so you don't really think of it, and it's gradual, so you can just keep track of it. Apparently I'd had a very quick, rapid change, which meant that when I thought I was going to sing a C sharp, it was a C, so I couldn't rely on kinetics anymore. That made it a little tricky, and so I had to learn how to sing again. and that delayed some of the album. And however, I'd say this will give hope to anyone that has any kind of vocal problem. You can work it through if you really want to, and you can do so in record time if you have to. So it's possible. But I mean, it's scary. It's scary. But that's the reason why we have so few tracks of the one. But there would have been a budget version, no matter what. That's how we see it. It's a budget version. It's sort of like the Walmart edition of the album, and that's how we made it. We did the same thing on the first one, but not quite to the same extent. So there is that. This is why we have one with so many bonus tracks on it. And to most of the rest of the band, I know that we actually think of the special edition as the actual album, you know, because the plan was always, and we did, bring the bonus tracks out live into the live show as well. So.
Well, and it was an interesting thing, too, when I heard the album and I looked at it and everything, and it brings up the other question about song sequencing when you're writing an album, because some of these bonus songs, as they came out, weren't actually all just at the end. They were, you know, I think the first one showed up at like track 7 before the rest of the album had been done. It was like, why do that? Why not put all the bonus tracks at the end? And was that for a sequencing thing that you were trying to do?
No, it actually, you know, it shows you how the band thinks of this. It's not, these aren't actually really bonus tracks. This is the album that we think of the album, the big one. That's the album, how we think of it. This is why we got involved with the song sequencing, and we have the tracks, and this is the order we want it. So. And quite frankly, why should you stick the bonus tracks at the end just because they're bonus tracks? And these are songs that we work just as much or sometimes even more on than the others. So,
yeah, and I just thought that was interesting because it was like normally you don't see that happen. But that's the first thing I thought was clearly it was important to the sequencing of this record to put some of these songs there, you know.
Yes. Yeah, we also wanted to send the message that these aren't just, you know, throwaway tracks. These are very important. I mean, quite frankly, to me, these are essential. Some of them, anyway. So, like 3 or 4 of these are essential to the album, if you ask me.
Now that we know the backstory of what was going on with your voice and everything like that, now it makes even more sense. So I think we got the whole story there.
Yeah, it makes it easier to understand how it happens. And some people, you know, they blame the label that we, you know, why do you make such a short album and so many bonus tracks in the special edition? It's just business. And I'm going like, you can blame AFM all you like. We talked and we agreed. We agreed on this kind of distribution of the tracks on the album together. It's AFM just as well as us. So if you want to blame anyone, you can blame us just as much as our label. And we were talking about this. We've done sort of like this for 2 albums now. The next one will not have this, and that's it'll be more like this is the definitive version of the album. At least that's the plan. So we'll see. We're going to talk to AFM again once we have all the tracks ready. But we are, you know, working very closely with AFM, and we're very happy with what we like. The relationship is just fine. So I think we'll be good with the next one too.
Well, you're so ahead of the curve on album number 3. You got plenty of time to plan all of that out. So
we already have the release date, you know, and everything. So can't tell you yet. That's for AFM to do. Right. But we have the title track done. You know, all of that. It's a good, you know, lots of things.
More stuff to be excited about. So
well, yeah, and you may think that okay, it's a little bit early. Like I said, you know, no, it's not, because this is when we have the time to write. We got to go on tour again, and so then we can't. Sure, last time. Mirrorworld, some of these songs were written on the road. I wrote You're Not Alone sitting on the tour bus, sitting up front one early morning. We were supporting Gamma Ray, and I had some time, and I sat down and wrote it. So that's how you do it. But it's good to be at home, you know, with all your instruments available, and doing it this way, it's sort of relaxing. I like both ways, because it's kind of cool to be sitting in a tour bus, you know, looking out into a gray morning, you know, and just working with your imagination instead, and that's good stuff too. But, you know, it's good to have time in the studio.
Absolutely. Now, you alluded to this just a moment ago, the time that you spend on some of the songs. Was there a song in particular on this record that took on such a life of its own and it changed so much it took you longer to put to bed and get finished?
Well, if you take a look at a song like The Life That You Want, for instance, that was a completely different song. What happened was that when I was sent the final stem tracks of the track, you know, with all the drums and everything done, I was like, what have you done? That's what I was like, what have you guys done? This bridge here, it needs to be syncopated. It cannot be straight, because that messed up my vocal line completely. I needed the possibility of using the loose timing in my vocals that the syncopated beat would allow me. But when it was super straight and played like very, very strict, I was like, nope, can't do it. So I had to write a completely different chorus, and new verse, new bridge, new chorus, new lyrics. That's it. And so obviously all the work I'd done before was just out the window. So yes, that took a lot longer.
It became a whole new beast. All right.
Yes.
A couple quick ones before we get out of here. I've always, power metal is a beast that came from Europe, obviously. Why do you think melodic power metal is so big in Europe, but has never found the same audience in America?
Well, to my mind, you say power metal and you're saying Europe. It's you got to remember that there's power metal from the U.S. as well. I would say that Sabotage, for instance, was very much power metal. Different approach to it, but it's power metal to my mind. This also allows me to allow different things in my music when I want to, and still call it power metal, because you have more options. It's still power metal because these guys did this and these guys did that. We can do this. I don't know. I think what happened is you have so many bands influencing so many other bands, and that's what you get. Personally, I don't really bother with thinking about it when I write so much. Oh, got to write a power metal song. I write a song, and then we play it with the musicians we have involved. And if these musicians are inclined to play it in a power metal style, well, there you go. Then power metal it is. So whatever you want to call it, it's fine.
Well, I mean, there's just certain groups that you think of in terms of the genre, I mean, I don't like labels that much anyway, except to maybe give an idea of what you can maybe expect in terms of sound.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You gotta, if you have to talk about it, it helps to have a label. But then again, I think if as a band you look at this and you say that, yeah, this defines us, then you've also limited yourself quite a lot. I think it's better to just write the songs and see where it takes you, and how do you play it? Does it work out? Okay, if it works out, it does, then you're good. If it doesn't, well, try another way. And
we have had some amazing bands like Sabotage, even bands like Seven Kingdoms and Mind Maze that we talked about that are progressive, power, stuff like that. But it's never gotten this type of exposure and grabbed hold in America like it has in Europe. And it breaks my heart because there's so many great bands I would love to see over here getting bigger, and some of the ones that are here getting more exposure. It's just sort of heartbreaking to me because it's such great music. But
well, yes, absolutely. But I can tell you right now that part of this is the whole mentality with musicians in the U.S. Too many of them buy into this whole idea, this concept of, any sacrifice we make now is going to be all right because we're going to make it big. Bullshit. Anything you do right now, any work you make, I mean, if you work, you should get paid.
Absolutely.
You don't have to, ask for $1 billion. Just make sure that you get, at least adequate compensation for the work and the time you're putting in. And don't forget all the time you put in preparing for the show. Let's say that your show is only 45 minutes. Let's say you didn't just work 45 minutes. You worked a lot more. Make sure you get compensated for that. You can obviously not ask for the first place that you're playing in to pay you for the 10,000 hours you put in practicing to get up to the level you are, but you got to keep that in mind too. Also get some compensation for the rest of it. And if musicians would do this, there would be a different atmosphere. There would be a different, when you go out and play, you could have actually bands doing this, and they could actually make some money when they do it. They don't lose money. And so they could spend more time doing it, and thereby growing their fan base and growing everything a little bit easier. Granted, you might find that you get fewer gigs because you ask for money, but everyone should ask for money when they work.
Yeah, well, and it sets a bad precedence not just for your own band and your own work, but for other
you're not just shooting yourself in the foot. You're shooting every musician out there in the foot. So you're killing it for everyone if you're paying to play. For Metal Nation Radio.
All right, before we get out of here, I would be remiss if I did not ask one non-serious Black question on the way out the door. Last time you and I spoke, you were talking about the second Project Arcadia album.
I hope we're going to see that. There's a very good reason why it hasn't happened yet. And it's because Plowman, the main man, has become a father. And I told him, and everyone said, take your time, enjoy it, man, because it's only once. This is the one time in your life where you have this. So you don't want to miss it.
Absolutely.
We can make the album anytime.
I couldn't agree more. Family has to come first. Urban, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. And the new album is fantastic, and we look forward to what the third album's going to bring. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see you on tour in the States here at some point. That would be phenomenal.
That would be great. Absolutely.
Take care, my friend.